what advice would you give to someone who feels stuck in a role or an identity that no longer fits for them?
So, and this is my mantra. It's nobody else's. So if it works for you, great, take it. If it doesn't, it's just how I roll. Whenever I'm stuck, whenever I feel that I've outgrown a person or a situation or a job or a title or a circumstance, I do three things. I call it the three C's. I think we just have to accept all different sorts of leaders. Leadership is not what it was many, many years ago. Leadership is not, bureaucracy. Leadership is not order giving. Leadership is more inclusive. Leadership is kind. Leadership is empathetic. Leadership is accepting. Leadership is authentic. Leadership is taking control of a situation without sounding like you're taking control of a situation.
Welcome to Make It Ambitious, the podcast for bold thinkers, doers, and leaders who refuse to play it small. I am your host, Vic Moser, strategist, creative entrepreneur, and conversation junkie. Each episode, I sit down with industry disruptors, creative founders, and corporate game changers to discuss the strategies, mindsets, and turning points that have shaped their journeys. Whether you're building your personal brand, scaling your business, rewriting your career story, or dreaming up your next big thing, this space is your permission slip to go all in, because playing small was never the plan. Amishi, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Welcome to Make It Ambitious. I'm so excited that you're here. And I wanted to ask you, can you walk us through a moment in your career when you realized you weren't willing to play it small anymore?
That's a great question. There were a couple of moments in my career when I decided that something had to give, something had to change. I think the first was when I was very young, and I don't think I was conscious of it, but I always was a very driven person, whether it was presenting myself at school, whether it was schoolwork or being on stage or representing, I was a house captain, so representing my team. So that leadership, getting on stage, being confident was kind of a decision that I made consciously. And of course, my parents and my teachers are very supportive, but that was something that kind of made me, change. Otherwise, I was a very shy, introverted kind of person. But as soon as I got on stage, I was a different person. So that kind of changed the game a little bit for me. And much later in life, when I finished my engineering and I was working in India, an opportunity presented itself for me to work in the US temporarily. But I took it, with full gusto. And, being 23, I was naive and risk taker, which I still am. And I just came on an H-1B and started working here. And the initial plan was to go back in a few years, but that never happened. I just loved work culture. I found family here. I found friends here. And about 25, 26 years later, here I am still. I think that was another big change in the way that I looked at my life and changed the trajectory of my life and decided that status quo was not good enough.
Wow, that's awesome. So I know that you wear a lot of hats. And you're a finance leader, you're an engineer, an entrepreneur, a dancer, a mom, and also pageant winner. Which one of those surprised you the most?
I would say the pageant winner part, because I was always a very right brained. Of course, I did my dance and I was creative as well, but I was always very career focused, very right brained, do well at work, do well at school, do well in college, all of that. I never saw myself as somebody who would participate, let alone win a pageant. So when that happened, and much later in life too, it's not the conventional 18-year-old, 16-year-old who stood on stage. I was 45 when I participated in my first pageant. And the last one, so I won three pageants back to back. And the last one I finished was about 46 and a half. So it was a very unconventional choice at a very unconventional age. And that really surprised me.
Wow, I love that.
Mm.
I didn't know pageants work like that either. I bet it's like a very cool process to go through one, though. Would you like to share a little bit about that experience? No.
Sure. No, I'd love to. I think the beauty industry and the pageantry industry has evolved, and they are more inclusive. There's all age types, all body types, all all genders, so I think it's no longer restricted to the particular types that we were used to looking at growing up, which is great. So it basically works on the model of women empowerment, get on stage, represent yourself. And I loved that experience. When I started, I was a rookie. I didn't know even how to walk. I knew how to talk. I've talked all my life, but what to wear, everything was so different. Everything was so against my grain, but it was a great experience because I met a lot of powerful, strong, independent women who think differently, who represent differently, who I learned a lot from. Teaches you a lot about teamwork. And as I explained, modeling and fashion was very different from what I was used to. So I learned a lot in the process. So I highly recommend it to anyone who would like to give it a shot.
That's great. I'm so glad that it's like a learning environment. It sounds supportive. People really underestimate that, having a community to go through it with and learn. And also, it sounds like they received you well as well. Like they didn't receive you, oh my gosh, she doesn't know anything, but more like, hey, here's how you do this. And you went also with a beginner mindset, which I think is so important for everybody to have in their life.
Thank you.
You once said that one of your superpowers is helping people feel empowered and happy in their body, mind, and soul. Where does it come from?
I think it comes from a lot of years of going through trials and tribulations because we all, at some point in our lives, are faced with difficult situations and circumstances. And then what matters at the end is how we present ourselves, how we show up for ourselves. So I learned over a period of time that acceptance is key, acceptance of the self, and then acceptance of everyone around you. And if you want to accept, then you also have to empower. You also have to allow people to present who they really are. So when I meet anyone, whether it's somebody at work or somebody in my dance class or somebody in my modeling or even friends and family, and I feel that they need a little bit of encouragement or empowerment or a dose of support, I will do whatever I can in my best possible way to make them see who they really are. And that brings me a lot of joy. That just naturally makes me pick up the person's energy. I see their face light up. And I'll give you a little example. When I started the dance school, Victoria, I was more aligned towards kids and teens, semi adults, but not full grown women like me. Just on a whim, I started an adults class for women who were my age, who had kids, who's kind of settled in life and etc. And I felt that a lot of women who came did not have a sense of accomplishment, although they were very accomplished. They were very educated. They'd done a fantastic job with their families, but the validation levels were very low. The empowerment was very low. The self-love was very low. And when these women spent an hour in front of the in front of the mirror, sorry, sweating it out in my dance class, from the time they came to the time they ended, I could see the glow up. I could see the empowerment. That gave me so much joy. Till date, that is my favorite class because it brings so much peace and joy to these women who have forgotten themselves, who have forgotten to love themselves and validate themselves. So I think that journey of, love and empowerment has changed who I am and has changed the way I see the world. And I like to give a little bit of what I can to the rest of the people around me.
Wow, that is so beautiful. I bet they also feel great after attending your classes. And I love that it's helping them, even though it's dance and it's something that they're not, let's say, good at or something. They feel like the environment is also welcoming, like we mentioned before, and they just feel like they can be themselves and learn to love themselves a little bit, I feel is what you said.
Yep.
So I believe you mentioned as well that you started this company
Mhm.
after having two kids. What gave you the courage to begin again on your own terms this time?
It's a great question, Victoria. I think when I came to Florida, I saw a market need. That was number one. They did not have, at least where I was living, we did not have a Bollywood dance studio. And I've always been a proponent of culture and how can I show and share what I've learned growing up in India as a kid. So that was the number one premise for me to start this studio. And as I was saying, the joy that it gave me, it was not about the money. Most of the years that I taught dance, I was in the red, to be very honest. But it became like a passion project. It became my way of giving back, whether it was culture, teamwork, or sharing what I feel good about with other women and kids and teenagers and men. And of course, at the end of the whole thing, when I see the production on stage, it's a very proud moment for me as a teacher, as a mother, because both my kids are also in my dance company. So it just brought so much joy to my life that that itself propelled me to keep doing it. And of course, like in typical business, I have to have the commitment. Because as they say, a dance teacher's job in the studio when she's teaching is only 5% of what she's doing. The rest of the time, I'm choreographing and I'm making videos and I'm putting music together and I'm organizing the shows and I'm organizing the students. And there's a lot of work that goes behind it. But I think it's the drive, the passion, and the fulfillment and the love that I feel at the end of every session that makes me want to do more.
For sure. Also, people don't, or not don't, but underestimate the business side of it, right? Like, even though you're saying you're doing it because you love it, at the end of the day, it's also you're pouring. And if you want your students to feel happy and feel like, oh my God, I learned this and we have a showcase and we're putting this production together, you gotta like market it and get people there and all of that stuff. And that's all of the behind the scenes that nobody sees. I bet you are probably sometimes thinking like about choreography in your head or something all the time and just thinking, oh my God, this person will probably look cute doing this and that or whatever. Maybe I'll move them to this side of the choreography instead of where they are right now or what, like all of that. Like, I bet it takes a lot of your brain power to think about it all the time because you love it.
It does. And it's honestly a great distraction. So it takes me through some very tense moments. I just have to put on some music and automatically my mind switches almost like meditation into dance mode. And even if I'm not dancing, I'm thinking, like you said, I'm thinking, okay, this step, this move, this line, this word. I'm constantly like drawing patterns on paper if I'm just sitting idle. I don't even, it almost becomes an involuntary muscle action. And I'm trying to fix my choreography. So it's beautiful. It gives me a world to escape into if I needed to.
Yeah, music is so powerful. It can change your mood. If you're super sad, you listen to a song that you really love and is upbeat, and you're happy now. You're upbeat and happy. Like it changes your mood so much. So I totally understand that. Talking about the business, and you also have a very powerful career. So how had burnout and setting boundaries showed up for you as you were climbing that corporate ladder?
Another great question. So I'll piecemeal it. So burnout is something that I was able to tackle very early on in my career because growing up in India, India is very competitive. So I was used to working hard, working extra hours. Then I became an engineer, and you know how that is. You're a techie yourself. It's hard work. And I came to America at a young age. I started leading teams, and the teams were in different time zones. So I was constantly getting woken up in the middle of the night, for issues and outages and releases and all that good stuff. So I learned how to work very hard when I had to. But the minute I had my kids, my quality of life and my perception of quality of life changed. It was no longer about the hard work and long hours and extra dollars. It was about, being there, being present for my children. So that's when I started handling burnout. And I said, I need to stop going crazy. No one is going to remember the last deal I did or the revenue I made in some year. I need to stop. So that was when I handled burnout. Boundaries, I'm still working on, to be very honest. I don't think I've mastered the art. I think I've gotten better, but it's part of my culture and conditioning a little bit where I personally was not able to put up boundaries very early on. And a lot of people took advantage of that. And over time, I've learned from my own mistakes and I've stopped overgiving and oversharing. I still lead with trust. I still think that at the end of the day, people are great and good and they're not going to take advantage. But I'm learning how to put my boundaries up as soon as I see red flags. So that's a work in progress.
I think I can relate to you so much on that because It's hard for me to set boundaries, like you mentioned too, because for me, it's the same way. It's a very fine line between setting boundaries and not trusting people, like you mentioned. And I'm the same way. I come with an open heart and an open mind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, until you give me a reason not to trust you anymore, I will be here. And then I see something, then I'm like, okay, I gotta back up a little. But yes, I think boundaries definitely for me are also work in progress. I'm also working on them. And I think if we do 1% better every time we encounter somebody new or a boundary get crossed and we just get 1% better at doing it, eventually we're going to be where we want to be.
No, I totally agree. I love that thought. And I also think that there has to be a balance in life. Not everybody can be over cautious, overly pessimistic. There has to be people like us who are optimistic, who trust. And life has this beautiful way of equalizing everything. Everything balances out. So we might be slow learners, you and I, but I know we'll get there. And we sometimes make the world a better place. So yeah, we get sometimes the short end of the stick, but we also give more.
I love that it hasn't changed us though, and I hope it doesn't either.
I hope it does.
But yeah, you also mentioned that you wanted it to share with us that you are about self-loving yourself way into success. Tell me a little bit about what that means to you and how do you apply it in your own life?
The way I define success now is very different from when I defined success when I was younger. I define success more internal than external. So when I was younger, success was external. It was about this house or this job or this paycheck or this career or this title. Now success is how I feel, how I'm doing, what I am doing, how I sleep at night, how my health is, how my mental health is. So it's very internal. And if I want to be a real successful person holistically, I have to learn to accept myself. And a lot of acceptance comes from self-love, right? If I can look at myself in the mirror every day and forgive myself, can forgive my flaws, can start from a position of what can I do to change myself tiny little bit today in the positive and accept who I am at the end of the day and sleep peacefully and my mind is anxiety free, that's how I am successful. That's how I define success. So unless we start loving ourselves the way we are, accepting ourselves the way we are, and trying to work on ourselves every day through introspection, through reflection, through learning every single day, we're not going to be in that position of self-love. And if we're not in that position of self-love, if we don't love ourselves, I don't know how we can call ourselves successful. So I think that's why I think self-love is the first step towards being a successful human being in your own right. You don't have to compete. Your yardstick is you.
I love that because we live in a society where, like you mentioned, to them, success is everything external. How much money you have, how many, like, for example, for you, how many deals you made, how many millions or billions of dollars you brought into your organization. Like, that is the stick for everybody, like, normally in society. And we are always hustling in this hamster wheel to do that and get there. But I love how you said reframe it to you, like, so what success means to you. And it's okay if it's different.
Mm-hmm.
And it is okay that it's about loving yourself. And if you did what you wanted it to do, were you happy? I love that. I think I'm going to start using that because I'm not using that right now. That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It's such a different perspective. I love that. Now I'm curious though, how have your roles outside of work, dance, pageantry, helped you become a better leader inside of your work, like the other work that you do?
That's another fantastic question, Victoria. You're blowing me away. Like it's so amazing. So it has been another journey of self-love and acceptance. Because I'm in finance, which is a very male dominant industry, women are generally far and few, especially at the level that I am. And then if you consider the diversity, where I'm a woman of Asian origin, even fewer women in kind of my role. So I embrace who I am holistically. I know I'm a finance person. I work as a relationship manager in sales, but I'm also an entrepreneur. I also teach dance, and I also am a model, and I also am a pageant person. I'm also a mom. So I allow people to see the whole side of me. They don't have to partition me. They have to learn to embrace all of me, just as I would embrace all of them. And it helps me because people now identify with me more. I can't tell you how many times people will looked at my LinkedIn profile, which has the whole picture. It is not just about me in my career. It also shows my dance and all of the other stuff. I get so many positive comments from people who applaud that I am in a dance teacher, or I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm a choreographer. So I love that it, brings me closer, makes me more, I guess, accessible. And even as a leader, dance teaches a lot of leadership skills because I'm not only the founder of the company, I'm the lead choreographer. I also, I'm the quarterback of the team in dance. So that shows me how to lead better, how to deal with different personalities, and all of that kind of transfers into my work skills. So it's all, interchangeable. It makes me who I am. It definitely uniquely identifies me. And I think I'm very close to my authentic self now. When I was growing up, maybe I was not very close to my authentic self, but now I am holistically more authentic, and I bring myself to people the way I really am.
I think a lot of people who watch this should to embrace all of themselves, like you said, also on LinkedIn. Because I think a lot of people are always scared to post other things or share other facets of themselves because they think, oh, I just have to show up in my suit and be this corporate person because that's what LinkedIn is for. But like you're saying, being a whole human being, it's all of these sides of you. And it's beautiful how you're meshing it together and you're showing it all there without hesitating of, oh, they're going to think I'm less of a leader or not as good at my job because I dance as well. Like you're embracing it. You're like, no. So I am extremely smart, but I'm also really creative and I'm really good at this and I model and I'm beautiful and it's okay to be beautiful and also be smart. Like you don't have to just choose one thing or the other. So I love that. I think a lot of women will hopefully embrace more of themselves because of you. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay, so you also talk about balancing your drive with being graceful, especially as a woman in finance. How do you do that?
It's a learning process. I've learned over the years that, as I said, I want to bring my authentic self to people. If I'm in front of a client, I want to be empathetic. I want to understand the client's needs perfectly. But in order to do that, I have to have a warm and authentic connection with the client. So if I lead like who I'm not, so for example, as I said, finance is a male dominant industry. Most of the times, the men around me talk about sports, talk about teams. I have zero knowledge of sports authentically. I don't favor any team. I follow some sports, I've watched some sports, but that's not who I am. So if I go and pretend to be a guy's guy or pretend to be someone I'm not, I think the client is very quickly going to gauge that I'm not bringing my authentic self. And when we see somebody who's not authentic, Victoria, what is our first thought? We cannot trust them, right? So instead of that, I now lead as a woman. I lead as who I am. I am a normal woman. I am softer. I'm more feminine. I talk softly. It's just who I am. And that allows me again to bring my whole self to my profession, allows the client to see who I really am, and sometimes helps me get through tricky situations because I think differently, because my mold is different. I've been in some very hot heated arguments, bunch of people with strong personalities. I've been the person with the softer personality. And what initially felt like was a difficult situation actually turned in my favor because I held to who I am. I am not the person who's going to be aggressive. I'm not the person who's going to throw cuss words around. That's just not who I am. So when I don't do what I'm not comfortable doing, I establish trust. because I feel comfortable doing what I'm doing. So that's how I've been able to learn that it's okay not to fit in. It's okay to be who you are. Just be true to who you are.
Wow, that is so powerful because a lot of people will think the opposite, right? They'll think if I don't behave like a guy and I don't do the things so that they can take me seriously, or you know how society is normally in, especially in those roles that you're in, then they're not going to listen to me or whatever. And I've seen so many women become tough and become that nobody's going to talk to me. And it's fine if it works for them. And if that's truly their personality, that's great. I'm not saying go change it. Like you just said, just be yourself. But it's great to know for women who are, like you mentioned, softer and more feminine and want to be that way, to stay in their femininity and stay soft.
Okay.
And it's okay to be that because, like you said, your authenticity is what's going to guide you and what's going to take you to where you have to go. I think that's a great lesson from this because, yeah, I would have never thought of it in that way either. So thank you for sharing that.
I think we just have to accept all different sorts of leaders. Leadership is not what it was many years ago. Leadership is not bureaucracy. Leadership is not order giving. Leadership is more inclusive. Leadership is kind. Leadership is empathetic. Leadership is accepting. Leadership is authentic. Leadership is taking control of a situation without sounding like you're taking control of a situation. So there's so many ways of presenting yourself across the board. And I think as a leader, the quietest person in the room sometimes is the most powerful person. So not everybody has to scream and yell and shout. Sometimes we need people to listen, observe, analyze, and then come up with a decision, which sometimes is the best decision in the room. So I think the world is changing, and I personally see that as well. I've seen some women leaders, like you said, who are very strong. And then I've seen some women leaders who take a back seat, who observe, and both of them do their job really well. Let's just choose a style that makes us comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Don't change yourself to fit in or to be the leader that you think you're supposed to be. That's what I took away from it. Because yeah, I, especially myself, I've always been a little bit more, I am an extrovert in a way because I'm just friendly, but in that sense, I've always been not so vocal of what I want or how to this or that or whatever, because it's not my personality. But I've wanted it to make it my personality because I thought that's what you're supposed to do so that people will listen to you or something. But as we are building a company right now, I'm realizing exactly what you're just saying. I'm like, no, it's not who you are. And it's not working because it's not who you are. So just don't do that anymore. So yeah, I'm learning about that too. So what advice would you give to someone who feels stuck in a role or an identity that no longer fits for them?
And this is my mantra. It's nobody else's. So if it works for you, great, take it. If it doesn't, it's just how I roll. Whenever I'm stuck, whenever I feel that I've outgrown a person or a situation or a job or a title or a circumstance, I do three things. I call it the three C's. I change my mindset. That's number one. I change my company. That's number two, as in not the job, but people around me. And third is I change my circumstances. So the first one, as I said, I changed my mindset. So we have to get out of that inertia. We have to pick ourselves up and say, enough, not taking this anymore. Put the boundary. Tell our mind that we need to start reprogramming and refocusing and reanalyzing and redoing what we've been doing. So that's number one. And change our companies, change the tribe. Say I want to move from IT to business, which I've done. You change the people you hang with. You hang with more people who are successful business owners, successful salespeople, successful financiers. Or if I'm going through a bad phase in a relationship, then instead of hanging with people who are in a bad phase, so that kind of draws my energy lower. I will try to hang with people who are in a good relationship, who are positive, who are embracing, who kind of pick me up from where I am and take me to a better place. So change the company around you. And lastly, change circumstances. And I think this is something I was blessed with as a child. I was always the kind of person who, whenever was given a tough situation, my amygdala took over and I just went into fight or flight and I wanted to get out of it as quickly as possible. Now, of course, I mean, we can all hope, but the situation is going to last as long as the situation is going to last. But at least we have to change we have to drive to change our circumstances because that's the only thing in our hands to try to change how we handle the situation. So those are the three things I think that have served me well and hopefully will serve anybody else who's in my situation.
Wow. I'm curious now. When you said changing the people, the company around you, could you explain that a little bit more? And also, does it get lonely if you're changing people, right? So it's okay, I am not in a good spot right now and I need to upgrade the people that are around me because they're stuck in the same negative mindset or whatever it is that you're in. Does it get lonely, and how do you even go about doing that in the first place?
I'm a big reader of philosophy and spirituality. And one of the things that all these books will talk about is how it is lonely as you start ascending in frequencies. When I say frequency, it's basically the way we think, right? The way we prioritize, what we define as success, the way we go inside. The better you get at these things, the lonelier you're going to get. And being alone sometimes does not equal to being lonely. You might be alone, but it might not be lonely, right? So you're right. When you change people around you, sometimes you filter and you filter and you cut down and trim down everybody who is not at the same level as we are. And then, the groups become smaller, our confidants become fewer, relationships become tighter, all for the good, but it often becomes a smaller subset of people we can trust. And then we have to start being comfortable in that and comfortable in who we are so that we can be alone without being lonely. But it's all for the good because the opposite of that is to stay stuck in a situation which had a lot of people, but we were not going anywhere. So I'll give you an example. I mean, there was a time in my life where I was socializing, I was meeting a lot of people outside of work, friends. I have too many friends, I think. And slowly and slowly, I started not feeling like I was that person anymore. So I was not, hanging out a lot. I was not into bags and shoes and nice dresses. And those things were not exciting me anymore. So I started reducing my social circle, reducing my social circle, reducing my social circle. Now the number of friends I have, Victoria, I can count on one hand. It's a very small group, but it's a very tight group. It's people who think like me, who are career focused, who are spiritual, who are philosophical, who look for better and bigger in people. And that's the kind of people I'm with today. And who knows where I'll be tomorrow, but I align better, although there are fewer people.
I get that. I feel like it comes in waves for me too, because I rather have one or two or three really good friends than just have a bunch of friends, but they're not really good friends, if that makes sense. But I think because I met you in person, I know that you are open and friendly and all of these things. So I can totally see how in that sense we're a little bit similar too. And all of a sudden our group of friends starts growing and growing, but they're, this is going to sound terrible, but like second tier friends, if you will,
Yeah.
or a little bit even more removed. But then we start accumulating all of these people, and then all of a sudden you realize, wait, what am I doing? And then you start spreading yourself too thin because you are like, okay, I don't want to be rude, so I'm going to show up if they invite me, so I'm going to this or whatever. And then that happened to me recently, actually, now that you mention it. My friend group had grown a little bit
Mm.
through, I was doing this very specialized type of therapy, which I'm never shy to share with people because I think it's important. And I accumulated a bunch of friends from through that experience and other experiences around it.
Mm.
And I love them and they are great and everything, but I don't know, like it's weird how it grew, right? Because all of a sudden I just had a bunch of people and I'm like, oh my gosh. And recently I started going, like you mentioned, very into myself. I started distancing myself a little bit, but I didn't do it on purpose. Like it wasn't like you, like it wasn't a conscious decision like the one you made. For me, it was more like it just happened. Like all of a sudden, I needed it to take care of myself. So I went inward. And because of that, the people just fell off because the ones that are truly my friends, they still reached out even if I didn't reach out. Like if because I was in a different spot. So I would be like, "Hi, how are you?" It's just who I am. But in that time, I didn't do that, and so they didn't reach back out. So then slowly, like you said, it just started sloughing off, going off, and now I'm back to where I started with just like very few, very good friends. I didn't even think of making that a conscious decision. It just happened for me, but that is amazing.
That's what they say. They say adversity basically tells you who your friends really are. When people stop reaching out, they're only there for a good time, then they're not, are they really worth having around you? I don't know. It's not a loss really if you've lost people. And I think the authentic friends who stayed are the ones you want to hold on to.
100%. I couldn't agree more. So I think you touch on this a little bit. I don't know if you want to revisit it, but how do you define success now? And how has that changed from before
Yeah.
or over the years?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think success before was very external, was very about milestones and numbers and quantity and years and days and milestones again and yardsticks and other people. And success now is me, is internal, is the competition is me, the yardstick is me, the goals are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And I define success as how I'm doing today versus how I did yesterday. So if yesterday I was physically better and today I'm not successful today. Yesterday I was mentally and emotionally not in a good spot, but today I am success. That's how I just keep measuring success. So it's become a very internal process and it has led me to start reflecting on my flaws, making me a little bit better person, little by little every day. And it's also made me a little bit more accepting of other people because when I look at myself every day and I see there are so many areas of improvement, I understand that when, people show up in a different way, everybody has challenges, everybody is learning, everybody is growing. So it makes me accept other people because I finally started accepting me. And that's how I define success.
Can 100% be our worst critics. That is sure. It's amplified. It's, oh my gosh, 100%. What's one belief you used to have about ambition that no longer serves you now?
I think it's in the same wavelength of success. Ambition in the past was making the biggest deal, making all this money, being known for all the work I've done, for the dance company that I've grown, for the students I've taught. It was always very yardstick validated by other people. Ambition now is a yardstick validated by me. What makes me sleep at night better? What brings me peace? I'm only ambitious up to that extent. If I am peaceful making the money I make, peaceful in the job I do, peaceful in the dance students I teach, in the mom I am, that is ambition. I don't have any more needs than that. I don't have any more wants than that. That is how I define ambition. So if that all those buckets are satisfied, that's all that ambition is for me. So it's no longer pie in the sky. It's no longer I want to receive this, that, and the other. I receive what I receive with gratitude. I accept what I have not received. I work towards that as long as my peace is not compromised. That is ambition.
Love that. You've been such an inspiring guest. Thank you so much for that. But I do have a closing, and I'm gonna throw at you some rapid fire questions so that you can just tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
Love it.
Sentence. So, is there a quote or mantra that carries you through tough moments?
This too shall change.
Ooh, these two shall change. What's one ambition you're chasing right now that feels a little bit scary?
Being remembered as the best version of me.
Wow, that is profound. I love that. What's something you're proud of that doesn't live on your LinkedIn?
That doesn't live on my LinkedIn, that doesn't live on my
Mhm.
LinkedIn, that I haven't shared.
Yeah,
That I sing very well. I've been trained in classical Indian music. That is not on my LinkedIn, and I don't think a lot of people know that about me.
I love that. Okay. Wow, we should go karaokeing or something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
let's do this.
I love karaokeing.
No, we totally, we're going karaokeing, and karaokeing is just a nice way of expressing yourself. Who cares for the quality of
Yes,
singing?
no, for sure. That's the reason I love karaoke because I'm like, if I karaoke, like it's not a professional singing thing. Like it's fine. Like you can be bad at it. Like
Yeah,
it's actually even better when you're bad at it because
I
it's
think
funny.
so
Like
too. I think so. Let's
it's
do it.
fine.
We should get a few
Yes.
girlfriends together and let's just do it.
Oh my gosh, that will be so fun. Amishi, thank you so much for bringing your full self to this conversation. I truly appreciate that. And your story, I feel, is just a huge masterclass in reinventing yourself and leading, but with like heart led ambition. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Victoria. I love how you summarized it. I've always maintained that you're very perceptive, you're very good with your words, and it was a real pleasure to talk to you today. So thank you for having me, and thank you for sharing some of your stories and your thoughts as well.
Thank you so much.